Hi, Celine. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Ayushi. I'm happy to be here.
We are so grateful to have you. You are incredible. You are an executive coach, a former COO, trusted advisor to rising execs and founders. Y'all, Celine is a rock star. She's built teams, scaled organizations, and now helps leaders get clearer, centered, and effective. In her own words, she says, you don't have to be born a leader. You can build up your leadership stack. And that's exactly why we are here today. So, Celine, welcome.
Thanks, Ayushi. You are too kind.
Well, to get us started, first we'll dive into the theme of going from managing to leading. As you know, that's been a journey that I've chatted with you and you've given me such good advice. And so for our audience here, for folk who are thinking about making that transition, first let's talk about, you mentioned the difference between doing work and leading the work. For people stepping into their first true leadership role, how do you explain that difference?
Hmm. I like to use a metaphor for that. I like to say it's kind of like going from being Superman to assembling the Avengers. So your job isn't about actually producing the output anymore or rescuing. It's about creating the conditions so that the team can shine. And that can be a hard transition.
Definitely a hard one, but I love your analogy. And many of these high performers struggle with letting go, even if they do have a team of Avengers. They know they shouldn't be in the weeds, but they're scared things will fall apart. So how do you coach someone through that?
I like to use the analogy of weightlifting. I like weightlifting. And so if somebody's weightlifting for the first time, I'm not going to say, hey, go in and deadlift 200 pounds right away. I'm going to start off with the 5 pound weights. So what I recommend in cases like that is to start small and build the muscle, right? List down all of the things that you'd like to be able to let go of or delegate, and then rank them from easy to hard. And then take something that feels manageable, maybe a slight stretch, and try delegating that. See how it goes. And then as you keep going and you get more comfortable, move down the list. And then before long, you'll be able to deadlift 200 pounds.
Does this work in real life too in lifting? Maybe I need help.
Well, you always have to start somewhere.
Well, you've helped me as well as other founders and execs really rewrite their internal scripts. What's a common belief that you find holds new leaders back?
Mm, Such a good question. I have to say, one limiting belief that came up actually this week in a coaching session was that I have to know more than the folks on my team. Like I have to be an expert in order to be able to lead them. And the challenge is that once you get to a certain scale or size, that is no longer true, right? You might be hiring, say, a head of marketing, and you've never done marketing before. You have to be comfortable with the fact that that head of marketing has done things that you will never ever want to do. It's not in your zone of genius. So you have to be able to unleash folks like that who are better than you at their jobs.
Well, I think that's really good advice, really reminding us to be humble because that is, I think, how we grow to be leaders and who can then also attract top talent as well.
Right. It's humble. It's about being humble, and it's also about not killing yourself trying to be good at everything, which I see a lot of leaders try to do in the early stages of transitioning to leadership.
Well, you're definitely talking to someone who needs more sleep. So I think I'll definitely be, going back and writing down my journal of all these things as well. Now I'd love to transition to kind of the second part of my questions, which were around your leadership stack idea. You mentioned that, something that you really crafted is this idea of helping your clients build their leadership stack. For the audience, can you break that down and tell us what does that stack look like?
Yeah, leadership stack is just shorthand for an idea that's actually existed out there from systemic team coaching as well as from the work that I do at Stanford in interpersonal dynamics. So it's this idea that in order to be a leader, you have to be good at 4 levels of leadership. So the first level is the individual level. So you need to be able to know yourself and manage yourself and self-regulate. have sleep and balance. Then moving up to the next level, you have to be good at the interpersonal level. So on a one-to-one basis with other people, can you interact well with others? Can you build trust? Can you give and get feedback? Can you be open? So that's the second level, interpersonal. Then you also have to be good at the team level. And at the team level, you need to be good at setting direction, generating role clarity, setting culture and structures like decision-making structures, feedback, compensation, getting people in the right roles. And that third level can be kind of new. And then there's actually a fourth level, which is the systemic level. So what do external and internal stakeholders need? Think of your customers, your board, your community, the world, and internal stakeholders too, like your employees. What do they need? How do you communicate with them? How do you interface with them? How do you keep them paramount in your mind? And it can be challenging to keep working at all levels of this stack.
Yeah, that is definitely a multi-tiered stack. And so for someone who's just been promoted, thinking about their stack, and they don't know where to start, what's the first building block they should work on out of the stack?
Mm-hmm. A good starting point. So a lot of people actually start at the interpersonal level. I like to start at the system and team level and say, what do your stakeholders need from you? And then what kind of clear purpose can you create out of what they need? And so to make this practical, can you craft as a leader a clear purpose that is a single sentence that is motivating and consequential? So this is actually an idea from 16 Conditions, giving credit where it's due. So an example of a clear purpose that's motivating is, when the US was working on landing people on the moon, right? The Apollo missions. The purpose there was we'd like to land a man on the moon and bring him back, and back then it was a man, bring him back safely before the turn of the century. And so that's an example of, like, in a single sentence, super clear what success looks like, super clear, check when you've done it, able to align a whole range of other teams to do this, very clear what kind of sub-tasks you have to perform in order to have that happen. Like, you have to build a spacecraft that can go there and back. You have to train astronauts to can survive that trip. You have to resource them. You have to raise funds. You have to keep the public aligned on this mission. You have to generate a sense of urgency. Like, all of these things are things that ladder up under this single sentence. And I would say that's the first thing you should work on. Build a clear, clarifying purpose that can motivate people and align your teams, and where success is very easy to measure.
I think that's super good advice. And I love this anecdote. And on that note, we'd love to hear more of your coaching in action. So without, names, can you share before or after of someone who you've worked with and how they transformed how they lead?
Mm. Mm. I'm thinking of a leader who came. The purpose in coaching was this leader wanted to be able to take a 3-month sabbatical and go on this round the world trip. They hadn't taken a vacation in years. So they were a founder who had started a company, bootstrapped their way up to quite a significant size, but they hadn't been able to get that balance in their life. And what we worked on was moving from being a heroic leader who had to be in the middle of all decisions to actually working down that delegation list that we talked about a little bit earlier. And this leader started delegating everything. So they actually pushed themselves really hard to delegate everything. And by the time we came up to, I think, the 4th month, they actually managed to take a month off. They never did get to 3 months, but they could take a month off. And that was huge.
What a great growth story. So thank you for sharing that. I imagine there's so many founders out there who have not taken vacation. So don't worry, even without naming names, I feel like there are probably a lot of people in the audience, unfortunately, who are kind of resonating with that. Celine, to kind of like wrap up, we have some quick questions for you. Are you ready?
Yep.
Awesome. You're known for helping people get unstuck. What's your favorite question to ask a client who feels overwhelmed?
Overwhelm can stem from having a lot of options and just not knowing where to get started. And I'm a big believer in getting unstuck through action. So acting your way forward, as opposed to thinking your way forward. So I always like to ask them, like, what's one small thing that is entirely within your control that would be something like a 15% stretch? Can you go do that? Like, try that, and sometimes that small action, very often, can help get someone get unstuck.
I like that. 15%. I hear 10%, I hear 100%, but 15 is quite precise. So I'll definitely make a note. All right, our next rapid fire one is, what's one small leadership habit that you think makes a big difference?
Ooh. So this is actually a personal one. Uh, After every meeting, I just write down one single sentence of what did I learn? What did I learn, or what is my one takeaway? And I've done this after every meeting, or at the end of every day for years. And I think that reflection habit um, helps me process what's going on and helps me grow and develop. So I sometimes recommend it to people, and I think it's useful for individual learning, but I also think it's useful for team learning, right? Helping your team kind of reflect and develop together.
Well, I feel like after this conversation, I'm not just going to have one, but many things to write down in my journal for what I learned in my, key takeaways. The last question that I had for you is, for listeners who feel like they've outgrown just being good at their job, but aren't sure what's next, what would you tell them?
Hmm. Just to clarify, is this that they're not sure about their next direction?
Exactly.
Yeah, I would say it can be really hard to think about what's my immediate next step if you don't know where you're going long term. So I like to take a page from, I think it's Paul Graham, and look at, what's my 5-year goal, right? Because 5 years isn't at the end of my life, what do I want to have accomplished? And it's also not what do I want to have done within the next year, because that could be too soon. So 5 years is a nice intermediate timeline. And then say, okay, based on what I want to accomplish in 5 years, what is one thing I can do today that would help me hit that? And then just rinse and repeat every day.
Well, that's very doable. I thought you were about to say something like so unsurmountable. So something I've really appreciated with you, with our time together, is really how achievable a lot of your suggestions are. You're still pushing yourselves, but it's not like completely changing your life, or as you said, planning for like, your life's legacy per any means. So
Right. Yeah. It's all about making it manageable,
yeah,
right?
I feel like sometimes change to me thinks like it needs to be a total step function. And it's really
Mm,
reassuring to know that, in some cases it might, but it doesn't have to be in order to be impactful. So
absolutely. I mean, we all live within these complex systems where, sometimes you change one small thing and it can be like a butterfly flapping its wings. One small thing can change huge parts of the system.
well, you've given me a lot of hope and motivation. I'm excited for Monday. Celine, this was so grounded. Thank you for being so generous with your time and your wisdom. Um, to wrap up, for our listeners who want to learn more, such as signing up for your newsletter, maybe explore coaching, just to learn more, where should they go?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Celine Teoh, or on my website, celineteoh.com.
Great. We'll definitely send them over. And thank you again. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, Ayushi. Thank you.